Ice cream sits in the freezer for years, not because of the cold, but because of trust. People buy the same brand for decades because the label says ice cream, and that seems like enough. Almost no one reads the ingredients. After all, the word ice cream itself ought to be a guarantee. But in America, ice cream isn't marketing language. It's a legal term with strict requirements. And the moment a manufacturer crosses even one of them, what's in front of you is already a different product, just with the real name printed in small type. Today, 10 brands that mislead buyers and 3 that actually deserve to be called ice cream. The rule is simple. Real ice cream in the U.S. must legally contain at least 10% milk fat and at least 20% total milk solids. That's the federal FDA standard set out in the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, Part 135. If a product doesn't meet those numbers, the manufacturer is legally required to call it something else, most often frozen dairy dessert. One number on the label and everything becomes clear without any investigation needed. Now let's see how this rule plays out in practice. From the simplest word, swap, to a story that cost lives. Number 10. Breyers, one of the country's oldest and most recognizable brands, sold natural vanilla for years, with vanilla pods pictured on the package. In 2024, a class action was filed against parent company Unilever. The product contained synthetic vanillin and flavorings, not derived from the vanilla plant, despite the label suggesting otherwise. The case settled for $8.85 million, and the company agreed to reformulate within a year. At the same time, part of the Breyers lineup quietly shifted into the frozen dairy dessert category because the new recipe, with thickeners and emulsifiers, no longer met the real ice cream standard. And this is the same brand tied to another entirely different story. Number 9, the half-gallon, no longer exists. Standard Breyers packaging weighed 64 ounces for decades, then 56, now 48, a quarter less product for the same price, sometimes even higher. Turkey Hill went further. In 2023, it shrank its container to 46 ounces, but instead of an honest number on the label, printed a rounded 1.44 quarts. Worded so buyers wouldn't immediately notice the difference. Klondike bars over the same period shrank from 5 ounces to 4 per bar. This is a matter of quantity. Same shelf, same box, less product inside. But shrinking quantity is an honest, if quiet, trick. There's a subtler way to deceive with a loud foreign name. Number 8. The word gelato sounds like a mark of quality. Italian, premium, supposedly denser and richer than regular ice cream. In reality, the word has no legal definition in the U.S. at all. Traditional Italian gelato contains roughly 3.5% milk fat, nearly a third of the American ice cream standard of 10%. So a product sold at a premium under a romantic Italian name is, by composition, closer to a light fruit ice than to premium ice cream. Now another trick built on the psychology of portion size. Number 7. Halo Top built a billion-dollar reputation on one phrase: eat the whole pint and don't worry about the calories. The lid literally says, stop when you hit the bottom. The secret is simple. A Halo Top pint has far more air whipped into it than regular ice cream. It weighs around 256 grams versus 428 grams for a comparable volume of Ben & Jerry's. Nutritionists cited by Time and CBS noted that marketing, which encourages eating the whole container, at once trains people to ignore portion size, regardless of how many calories it contains. The product doesn't violate any standard. The question is simply what the brand is really selling: ice cream or permission to overeat. The same air that Halo Top turns into marketing hides behind a completely different word on other brands' ingredient lists. Number 6. The ingredient list of many brands includes cellulose gum, also known as carboxymethyl cellulose, or CMC. Yes, it really is derived from wood pulp or cotton linter treated with acetic acid. That's not cause for panic. The FDA and independent scientific reviews recognize it as a safe additive. GRAS, used for decades. Its function is simple and honest. Cellulose gum retains water and prevents large ice crystals from forming during thawing and refreezing. The manufacturer doesn't hide the mechanism, it's just rarely explained out loud. Which raises another question. What happens when the name on the package describes an entirely different product altogether? Number 5. Plant-based ice creams made from coconut or oat milk now sit on the same shelf in similar packaging, sometimes with the same typeface as dairy ice cream. But legally, it's a completely different product. Under labeling rules, it can't be called ice cream and instead carries names like frozen dessert or non-dairy frozen confection. This isn't a question of quality. The plant-based alternative can taste great. It's that a buyer, looking specifically for dairy ice cream, sometimes picks up a different product entirely, just because the packaging design hints at the familiar. Even a brand with a solid reputation isn't immune to a surprise in the ingredients. And here's an example with no accusation of deception at all. Number 4. Chocolate-coated ice cream bars are a popular premium format. In 2020 and 2022, class actions were filed against Häagen-Dazs. Buyers claimed the coating, labeled rich milk chocolate on the package, was actually a composite coating using vegetable oil in place of some cocoa butter. A court dismissed one of the suits, ruling the plaintiff hadn't shown that consumers know and rely on complex food regulations while shopping. So legally, the company broke no rules. But the practice itself, replacing part of the cocoa butter with vegetable oil in premium ice cream coating, is typical of the industry as a whole, not one brand's exception, which leads to a category where the problem isn't a specific name, but its absence. Number 3. The biggest trap isn't a brand, it's the blank space on budget line packaging. Many cheap frozen dairy desserts don't disclose how much air, overrun, is whipped into the product beyond standard levels, and rarely publish a full list of stabilizers for each flavor separately. Under federal rules, ice cream can't weigh less than 4.5 pounds per gallon, and budget products often sit right at that line. More air, less raw material, same package volume. It's legal, but it's exactly the transparency that's missing where it's needed most, on the cheapest shelf. Number 2, a favorite brand on the label doesn't always tell you who actually made the ice cream. In June 2024, Maryland-based Totally Cool recalled more than 60 products over possible listeria contamination, among them ice cream sold under the Hershey's, Friendly's, Jenny's, and Chipwich names. All these recognizable brands were made at the very same contract facility. A buyer picks a familiar logo, believing they're also picking a certain level of quality control, when, in reality, several competing brands can come off the same production line. But even when a brand controls its own production start to finish, that's still no guarantee of safety. Number 1, the oldest and simultaneously most dangerous trap is blind trust in a big brand known since childhood. In 2015, Bluebell Creameries, the country's third-largest ice cream maker, faced a listeriosis outbreak. CDC investigations linked the company's products to at least 10 illnesses across 4 states. 3 people in Kansas died. It later emerged the company had been getting positive listeria tests at its plants since 2013, but didn't issue an official recall until April 2015. In 2020, Bluebell pleaded guilty to 2 counts and paid a $17.25 million fine, the largest such penalty in the history of the U.S. food industry. The point, even the most famous name doesn't substitute for quality control on the production line. Here's a simple test you can repeat with any 2 containers from your freezer. Take full-fat ice cream meeting the 10% plus milk fat standard, and a budget frozen dairy dessert of the same volume. Let both soften slightly on the counter for 15 to 20 minutes, then return them to the freezer for a few hours. The full-fat product will stay relatively smooth after refreezing. Fat and stabilizers hold the structure together. The budget version, with its high air and water content, will quickly develop visible ice crystals and turn grainy in texture and taste. The difference is visible to the naked eye and fully explained by the physics of fat and water. No chemical drama involved. One benchmark: check the word on the package. If it says ice cream rather than frozen dairy dessert or frozen dessert, the product has already cleared the federal 10% milk fat threshold. A mid-price example: Tillamook Old-Fashioned Vanilla has a short ingredient list: cream, skim milk, sugar, pasteurized egg yolks, vanilla extract, and 2 plant-based gums as stabilizers with no artificial flavors or colors. This is what a transparent label looks like in the mid-price segment. For the premium segment, an example is McConnell's Fine Ice Creams, a California maker founded in 1949. According to the company itself, their ice cream base contains more than 18% milk fat, higher even than the typical 13 to 14% found in artisanal ice cream, and uses no stabilizers or thickeners at all. The classic vanilla's ingredient list is just as short as the mid-price example: cream, milk, sugar, non-fat milk, solids, egg yolks. The benchmark for finding a brand like this is exactly these 2 figures on the manufacturer's site: fat content of 14% or higher and no stabilizers on the ingredient list, not just the word premium on the label. For the budget segment, a store's own private label works fine, as long as the package still says ice cream rather than dessert. The same federal 10% fat standard applies regardless of price. An interesting fact for context: according to the International Dairy Foods Association, vanilla has remained the most popular ice cream flavor in the U.S. for years. Despite all the choice on the shelf, most buyers still reach for the simplest option. In the 1930s, before the standard described earlier existed, regulators toured the country with an exhibit called the American Chamber of Horrors, a showcase of products that deceived buyers. One of the exhibits was ice cream, a clear example of how a manufacturer could imply cream that was barely present in the actual product. That exhibit helped push through the law that eventually gave that same 10% milk fat figure the force of law. 90 years later, a mother stands in front of that same shelf, facing the same question once illustrated on a poster for congressmen. The only difference is that the answer now fits into a single word on the label, one she no longer looks past.